I had applied for a grant through the Small Business Administration, and we actually made history. We were one of 20 in the nation that became Women's Business Center in January in 2021.
You just heard Norma Dunn, Director for Kern Women's Business Center. Norma Dunn is a business and community leader with a proven track record known for her innovative approaches. Norma's passion for education and business, combined with her engaging personality, has earned her a reputation as a high-impact networker. She is a sought-after community leader as she is accomplished at planning and executing strategies that are both effective and efficient, in addition to a proven track record of assisting private, public, and nonprofit organizations with forging success partners. Norma is MCSC's new Deputy Director of the Kern Women's Business Center. Today's show, I sat down with Norma Dunn, Director of the Kern Women's Business Center. I was joined also by our co-host Amanda DiGiacomo. We talked about their grand opening, which is a huge success. We talked about her partnership with community leaders and the consultants and experts that they have access for women, minority, vet, and low-income young entrepreneurs or old entrepreneurs for that matter. We talked about some upcoming events, one that is coming up in June that has a very limited space. I think 25 was the cap. So if you've heard the show, if you're interested, make sure you go to the website and sign up. We learned a little bit from her about her mentors and her passion for reading. And one of my favorite rapid fire questions we always ask is what she would do if she could give advice to her 18-year-old self. So stay tuned for all that and enjoy the show.
Welcome back to the Our 2 Cents podcast, the show where your local professionals sit down with an array of guests to hear their story and impart some wisdom for both business and life-improving skills. This is your place to hear business and community leaders discuss relevant topics that matter to you.
Welcome back to the R2 Cents podcast. I'm Kyle Jones, and co-hosting with me today is Amanda DiGiacomo. And Amanda's actually been on as a guest twice. She was actually our first podcast we ever did, and I can't think of your friend's name we did it with.
Allie Anderson.
Allie Anderson, yeah. Over a year and a half ago, episode 1. And now she has joined us in our office, Atlas Financial Solutions, and she is going to be a regular co-host of the podcast. In the next 2-3 weeks, you'll be hearing her. And then starting, I guess, in maybe late June or July, you'll be kind of doing it on your own and having your own guests. And so we're excited to have you.
Yeah, I'm super excited too. A little nervous, but excited.
Yeah, it'll be fun. So with our guests, you just attended a grand opening. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. So Norma had the Kern County's Women's Business Center. The grand opening was last week, and I got to attend that, and it was a wonderful event. They had a ribbon cutting ceremony. The Small Business Administration from DC kind of came, and their representative, and the chamber was there, and she was presented a lot of certificates of recognition, and we got to hear success stories of like people that have gone through her center, and it just was overall a great celebration, and I was so proud to see her in that moment. And as soon as I heard we had an opening, I was like, let's get her on there and let's talk about the center and like what it offers. So I'm super excited to have you today here, Norma.
Thank you so much for having me. Super excited to be here with you as well with the podcast and sharing what the Kern Women's Business Center does here in Kern County. Again, the grand opening was a huge success. Again, thanks to the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce who did our ribbon cutting, the community resource partners that attended our center opening as well. We just opened our offices at the University of Laverne campus. So we're located at 10800 Stockdale Highway, Suite 201. So it was just exciting just to share the new resources that were and the location where we're going to be able to provide classes, workshops in a hybrid mode so that we can reach the far ends of the county.
You're the director, right?
Yes.
And what prompted this, or what got this off the ground, or is this something you've been wanting to do for a long time? Give us a little history.
Yeah, sure. Actually, Mission Community Services Corporation is our host organization, and the Kern Women's Business Center was launched in March of 2019, and we were a satellite center to our headquarters in San Luis Obispo. So Mission Community Services Corporation services Kern County, San Luis Obispo County, and Monterey County. So when we launched the Kern Women's Business Center in March of 2019, we were just an extension of the headquarters in San Luis Obispo. And so what we did is we hit the ground running, providing resources to women, and we focus on women, minority, low income, and veterans to help them scale their businesses up or start new businesses.
Okay. And so that's a weird or odd carve out. Monterey, San Luis, and Kern.
Yeah.
So like geographically doesn't really line up together, but hey, it works. And you started right during COVID. I mean,
Just about, yeah. It was 2019, so March of 2019, and then COVID hit, right? So we jumped into the COVID relief with the economic injury disaster loan, the EIDL PPP, and really helping small business owners with the resources that were available and helping them apply for those loans or those grants that were available to them. So we were at our busiest during COVID, during 2020, 2021. In 2021, we became an SBA designated women's business center. I had applied for a grant through the Small Business Administration, and we actually made history. We were one of 20 in the nation that became Women's Business Center in January in 2021.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's a great accomplishment. There was a California grant that focused on women, vet, and minority-owned businesses. I can't think of the name of it. It was through Lindustry.
Oh, that was a California relief grant. And that actually assisted a lot of business owners. Again, they had to meet a certain criteria.
Right.
That was a $5,000 grant, a $15,000 grant, and a $25,000 grant, depending on the
revenue, I think.
The revenue, right. So we definitely hit the ground running here again in Kern County, going business to business in Arvin, Lamont, Delano, Shafter, Wasco, Cal City, and really letting small business owners know about the California Relief Grant, because that initially, even for a sole proprietor or an independent contractor, which could have included Uber drivers or hairdressers, salon, nail techs, so forth, they were able to get a $5,000 grant if they met the criteria and submitted the applications.
And my understanding is there's still funds left in that, but they're not taking any new applications. Is that accurate?
The California Relief Grant ended September of last year, and so that is not available anymore. But what is coming up now, and I was letting Amanda know, is the Dream Fund is a new grant program for the state of California, and we are a part of that. So what the Dream Fund will do is provide seed funding to entrepreneurs who may have started their business after July 1st of 2019 or are in the process of starting their business now. And they can take our 12-week course, and then after the 12-week course, they have the opportunity to apply for a $5,000 grant.
That's great. And so unlike the EIDL disaster relief loan, that's a loan that you pay back. These grants we're talking about are similar to the PPP, where they're actually forgiven and not.
Well, it's different than PPP. So for PPP was a loan, but then there was a forgiveness part of it. These are just grants that you're getting either through the state or through the federal, depending on which entity you're getting it through. And then depending on which entity you're getting it through, that's going to be taxable on the state or the federal side. So they're still taxable, but they won't be like where you have to like pay it back.
Right.
So, okay.
Where the PPP, if you didn't meet their criteria and use it for payroll or utilities or a certain portion of what they wanted, you have to pay it back.
Right.
So they're a little bit different, where it's nothing you have to pay back. You still have to pay taxes on it, everyone, but you don't have to pay it back. And I think Norma did a really good job. She reached out to me, and I know other like local accountants, and she was making sure that we were made aware of these grants during COVID. She helped me tremendously during that time, getting all these grants in front of my clients that we had. Also, I know the local housing authority here also was doing things with mortgage and things. I think between her center and other local things, because there was the Bakersfield Restart grant, there was just a bunch of different things. And I think collaborating during that time just really helped get all those business owners those resources and grants. So I was excited to partner with you like during that time, and like, hey, were you aware of this grant? Hey, are you aware of that grant? Okay, how are we going to get this out? How are we going to tell people about it? So,
and that was huge, because there were so many opportunities out there. And as you mentioned, some confusion, because there's like, oh, I applied for EIDL. Oh no, it was PPP, or it was PPP too, or it was the EIDL advance,
yeah,
right?
Which was not taxable.
Yes. There was so much going on. And when the pandemic hit and all this funding came available, it was changing on a daily basis, so we had to be on top of everything and the changes that were happening, because it's never happened before, and this funding was never available before. So we really had to focus on not only obtaining the training from the different agencies that were providing the services, particularly the SBA, and really educate our consultants and our team to make sure that we're providing the service to these small business owners and giving them the right information. And that's where Amanda came in and said, okay, you know all this stuff about this finance piece of it, right? So we wanted to make sure that we had that information for them, and they were able to really keep track of what it was they were applying for, and know and really organize their paperwork paperwork so that they would be able to benefit from the resources, but also understand what the documentation requirements were and what they needed to turn in. So that was really key as well.
Yeah, and I think that having the place to get that information, because everyone heard about that, like either on the news or through the grapevine type, water cooler, like, but they weren't sure, like, what is which, what do I qualify for, what do I not qualify for, what I have to pay back, what don't have to pay back, what's taxable, what's not taxable. And so it was good that there was resources like you guys around to kind of navigate business owners through that.
Yeah, and filling it out. That was you can ask Norma, like, that was probably the biggest headache, I think, of it all, was you had people who didn't do their books for years, or they were behind on their taxes, and they wanted these grants, or they wanted the EIDL or the PPP, and we're like, you got to get your books in order, which then that cue in the accountants, which were helping them put their books together during this time to be able to apply for that. And then I know Norma, she had days like carved out in her schedule where you could go to the center and they would help you fill it out if you had your information. So it was like pushing her, like, hey, if you're not I'm not something that you can afford or do. And I did a lot of volunteer work and just helping people fill it out if they had their books ready. But like, hey, here's a center, you can go to them, and like partnering with them and making sure that those resources. But I think a lot of people learned how important accounting was during this time, because you couldn't get any of these grants or the EIDLs or the PPPs if you didn't have your books in order.
Right. Or your tax returns.
Yeah,
and
your tax returns.
Yeah.
Also, the profit and loss, your balance sheet. They wanted to see all that, and people were like,
I don't have that.
I don't have that. What is that?
Right. Well, they learned quick how to create one.
Exactly.
That's great. And it's going to be interesting. I mean, we're seeing the part of the ramifications of that mass funding right now with inflation and what the stock market's doing. And so it was a lifeline that a lot of businesses needed, but I think we're all going to pay the piper for it here in the next few years.
Prices have increased, and I know unemployment insurance has increased for small business owners as well. And then, you have a lot of different other regulations that are coming down from the state level, especially with the Cal Savers now coming into impact this June.
That's right.
Yeah, June. And a bunch, now they're talking about how, it's been proposed, it hasn't been approved yet, but they're talking about if you have like 100 employees or more, going down to a 4-day work day and things down like that. So I just think with all of that during COVID and new regulations that are coming down, it's just essential to be following the Women Business Center or communicating with your accountant or lawyer or somebody that's professional that's staying up with all these new regulations, because I think it's just ever going to be changing. Like before, you'd be like, oh, the tax laws change every 4 years with a new president. Like, no, I'm consistently still seeing it change like every 6 months.
Everything's changing.
Yeah.
Everyone has to be fluid right now. We're doing some like eviction work, and that's kind of changed. The laws have changed with respect to that. It's changing almost weekly. It seems like certain notices have to be required. So California always historically has had a lot of regulations, and this just kind of fast forward even more regulations. So navigating those waters, I think, your center would be very beneficial to the business owners in this community.
And that's one of the things that we really pride ourselves in, where we provide the services, but we also bring in our resource partners. Again, we focus on assisting the small business owner, but we also focus on and helping small businesses obtain their federal certifications to do federal contracting work. We have Edwards Air Force Base, we have China Lake here. There's a lot of opportunity for small business owners to take part in the federal contracting arena, also at the state level or even at local government level as well. So we help with those certification processes as well. And that could be, again, the Women-Owned Small Business Certification, the Disabled Veteran-Owned Small Business Certification. There's a 8A, there's a Hub Zone, several different workshops for certifications, but we work really closely with the Small Business Administration, and we have workshops monthly on those certifications to really train and to teach individuals how to obtain those certifications, and we can even help them walk them through the process.
It sounds like, that was kind of the next question I wanted to kind of go to, is just kind of break it down to the basics. And I know you mentioned a lot already, but I don't know if you can, in a bullet point format, say what the center does. It sounds like there's so much. I don't know if there's enough time to go through and list everything, but generally, how would you kind of describe the purpose or maybe the mission statement of the center?
Well, again, we're here to provide the resources to women, minority, low income, and veterans, small businesses to really be successful and participate in, not participate, but contribute to the community. And again, we know when small business owners are successful, then they also are giving back to the community. So we're here to help them with that. And also, we, as you mentioned, bullet points. Okay, let's see. Let me think now. Workshops. So we have the workshops. We have the classes. We bring in expert speakers. We have different types of training available, and we really focus on all the business acumen. Again, from a business plan to social media marketing, I have a team of consultants that are available to work one-on-one with small business owners.
How many employees do you have at the center?
2.
Okay. And so you and 2 others basically run the entire... Oh, wow. Okay. So you guys are busy.
Yeah, she works with a lot of consultants that help with the programs and the classes and the different things on one-on-one with the business owners. But yeah.
Independent contractors?
Yes.
So you bring in a lot of...
I have about approximately 23 business consultants. And as I mentioned, they range from human resource management, strategic planning, social media marketing. Again, during COVID, we were really focusing on the financial aspect, the grants, the loans, and so forth. But I definitely have, if someone has a question on safety or environmental health and safety, or they want to talk to someone about human resources, hiring someone, we do have experts in that field as well.
You get into the, because we have, Amanda's told you about our group here and with the podcast, but we have all these different professionals that kind of work together and provide I'm going to say one-stop shop. That's a term that's used a lot, but that's kind of the approach we try to bring to the community is having a place where you have a resource for a CPA, for financial planners, for, attorney, life insurance, health insurance. So do you have all those kind of fields within your consultant reach that you can, if someone wants to say, has a question about benefits or insurance, do you have someone that you work with on that end as well?
Well, we do have a consultant that is, I guess you would say an expert in that field, but I also reach out to community resource partners. So again, individuals that have an insurance company, that are here in Kern County that can provide a workshop for small business owners, I will bring them in to do a workshop. For example, just off the top of my head, we just had a workshop with Sue Watson. She did a strategic planning workshop for us. And, it was fantastic to have her available to our client base to talk to them about, being prepared strategically, really positioning your business to be profitable. So again, bringing experts from the community is what we do, and really get them to, again, normally some of our clients may not have access to them. So we want to be able to provide that resource for them.
Not only not have access, but don't even know to access them, right? Not even know what
the questions exactly.
What to ask or what to do. Exactly.
So is your typical client, for lack of a better word, someone who is wanting to start a business or who has an existing business already and then is looking for help in navigating some waters? What kind of typically do you work with?
It is both. I know Larissa shared her story at the grand opening, and she's also, we did a video because we were nominated for the Beautiful Bakersfield Award, which I'm super excited. But we featured Larissa. She came in to us looking for assistance for her business when she first started her business. And now, just a few years later, she is very successful. The name of her business is In the Black Business Services, and she does tax preparation. And she shared her story about, taking care of her 5 children and then still starting a business and then learning at, all the different workshops when we had, during COVID, and how it helped to position herself to be successful and really help not only her community, but she came full circles because she was a client. And then now she's a business consultant. So now as coming full circle, she's able to give back to the community and to help other women and even individuals. Because we do have, even though we're called the Women's Business Center, we do have some male clients. We don't turn any small business owner away. We are here to help. So just her listening to her story and her sharing her story of how the Women's Business Center helped her, and then now she wants to give back.
Do you have criteria for what counts as a small business, or is there anything that a certain amount of employees or what?
No.
Okay.
No, it could be a sole proprietor. Again, just that one person. As we know, there's a lot of sole proprietors. And so it doesn't, for us, there is no criteria. We're here to help if it's just the one person. During the pandemic, we did have larger companies that we were assisting with the pandemic relief, multi-million-dollar companies. So again, we are just here to help.
So, okay. So it's called small business, but it's not like a criteria that says you can't have more than X amount of employees or a certain revenue, or like some of the restrictions for the, EIDL loans and
Well, I'm sure
grants.
that those grants or things you can't get because you don't meet the requirements. Like if you're over 5 million in sales,
right.
or if you have X amount of employees, you can't apply for certain grants. But it doesn't mean that you can't have the consultants point you in the right directions of marketing and strategy and all these other things. But obviously, there is a limitation to grant money and certain things that can't go to those larger companies.
Well, specifically also because when COVID hit, a lot of the small business owners and independent contractors were kind of left out of that first round. The first round of pandemic relief. And then that's when the SBA realized they needed to make some changes. And they did make those changes in trying to reach those mom and pop shops, those sole proprietors, those independent contractors. And then that's where things shifted. And that's where all this additional funding came, like the California Relief Grant and the Restart Grant with Access Plus Capital and all this other funding that came through, because they recognized that the small business owner didn't have a chance to apply during that first round, because a lot of the corporations, larger corporations, as you mentioned, really took advantage of that.
Because they had the resources and the staff and the knowledge to jump on it right away, and then funds dried up.
Well, they had CPAs right there.
Yeah,
they could just do instead of having like, I need to have my taxes and my books done. That's not done for me already. Like, yeah, it's done. Yeah, it's done already. Here you go.
Yeah, there was a lot of I don't know if you guys remember a lot of bad press that came out of that first round. You had I can't remember, like the Lakers and all these huge organizations going for the PPP, and it's like, wait a second here, and then that kind of wasn't taken very well by, I guess, most people in this country. So I think they cleaned it up for the second round of the PPP. So I want, if you don't mind talking a little bit, I don't make it about her, but the success story that you guys were sharing at the grand opening. Did she go into detail as to maybe what you guys did specifically that helped her, or certain things that really stood out, so we can kind of...
Yeah, I loved her story. If you mind me talking a little bit about it.
No, you go ahead.
Because I was there, I got to hear her story from, and I got to meet with her, and we're in the same profession, so you would think, it might be a little bit competition, but immediately...
I thought that too. I was like, that's your competition.
No, we immediately gravitated towards each other. We're like community over competition, and now we have a lunch, and now we're going to collaborate and work together. But it was all because I heard her story and got to hear how she is. And she was saying that she was a mother of 5, and she had a baby crying on one hip, and she went into the Women Business Center to meet with Norma, and she's like, I don't know what to do. My baby's crying. I want help, but I don't know where to go. And Norma's like, we got this. Calm down, take a breath, we'll get you through it. And she was saying during that time, the only thing to do, which I think a lot of professionals or people who wanted a better life for themselves, they took advantage of the webinars and the seminars and all the different classes and things that everyone was kind of offering during that time. So she's like, I didn't have anything to do, but you know what? I just plugged away at all the classes that the Women Business Center was having, and I did this. And she got to meet with one of the consultants, Angel, Angel does so many different things in so many different organizations in this town. We'll have to definitely have her on the podcast as well.
Angel Cottrell.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Angel's really good at how do you scale your business and how do you strategically place yourself. And I think working alongside Angel, they've just come up with a great business plan, and she was able to get it off the ground and have great marketing and position herself into streaming into the successful business she is now. And to the point where, we were just discussing it the other day that she's potentially moving into another state to do a second branch and do things in other areas. And so her success story was a great one. And the fact that I immediately went up to her and was like, yeah, I do the same thing as you. And I was embraced with a hug and you aren't my competition. How can us women stick together and help and continue to build each other? Yeah. So hearing her story was inspiring, because I am in the same field as what she does. I don't have 5 kids. I don't have kids. And so I can't even imagine. I'm stressed out. This last tax season was probably the worst tax season. And I couldn't imagine doing that with 5 kids. So for me, she's even more of an inspiration to me, because I'm I don't know if I would have the strength to have 5 kids and be able to start a tax preparation firm and be successful in that way. Maybe I can't.
You can do it, Amanda. You can do it. And one of the things that she did, because Angel was our instructor initial for our program, which was called Start, Run, and Grow Your Business. And she was in Angel's class. And then when the pandemic hit, then we pivoted as well, like everybody else. And we did a Beyond Start, Run, and Grow class, which is, again, now that, we're in the pandemic, what do you need to do to make these changes and shifts in your business to be successful? So she participated in those classes.
And how did she mention how she heard about you guys, or how she came?
Yeah,
to find
she
you?
did. Actually, she had a partner who took our Start, Run, Grow class with Angel before she did. That was when we launched in 2019. And then her business partner had graduated from that class and told her about it. And then the following class, I think it was the following year, she went into the Women's Business Center and then started the program.
So what do you do in the community to market your services to let everyone know that you're here?
Well, a lot of it is through social media. So again, Instagram, Facebook, our website, events like this, podcasts to get individuals aware of what we do. We've just launched a media marketing campaign with KGET. So we did the KGET Live. So we're doing different things like that in the community, but we're also trying to launch and get more traction for our Latino program. We do have the Soñando y Empezando class starting the 25th of this month. So reaching out to those different media outlets for our Spanish program and also the English program as well.
Also, you partner with the chamber.
Yes.
You're on the board with me, or the guidance committee with KITE, which is the Kern Initiative for Talent Entrepreneurship, which is, Kern County is top 10 in the nation for starting a small business, but the statistics start to decrease after like the 3rd to 5 year mark. They start to disappear. And so the Kern County Economic Development Center, Seed Corps, and a bunch of other people came together with CSUB, BC, with your program, with Angel's C-Tech program, and decided to make this nonprofit that's going to help alongside you and other people make business owners be able to stay past that 3 to 5 year mark. But I think you've positioned yourself with people like myself, other local nonprofits, the chamber, other programs that can help are in the face of entrepreneurs. Right.
Again, we could not do it without our community resource partners. Again, even our corporate sponsors as well. And you're right. We just had a meeting with KITE, and then there's a new initiative to start a new community development financial institution, or a CDFI. So we just had a meeting on that yesterday. What is it going to entail? How are we going to get this out to the people who need it the most, and these small business owners that need access to capital? So a lot of different programs. Yes. And Amanda is right. We're on different meetings. We go to different meetings and we're on these different committees because we want to see that the small business owners or the small business are represented here in our community and have the resources they need to be successful.
Do you assist with nonprofits?
Yes.
Oh, great.
Yes. As a matter of fact, Glenda Wolfolk was there at the grand opening. I don't know if you probably got a chance to hear her story. She started her nonprofit, No Sister Left Behind. And she told her story of how she connected with me on LinkedIn, and then saw that, the Women's Business Center was there. And then so I worked with her because she had just obtained her 501c3 designation, but didn't know where to go from there. And so we were able to assist her, with what she was going to be doing with the nonprofit, and she's established her board, and so forth. And now she's obtained grants, and they're doing some fantastic work here in Kern County.
Her story was inspirational too, because she did this after retirement.
Yeah.
So she did it in retirement. Was like, I
got more to give.
I have more to give.
Exactly.
And she's like, what does my community need? And she started this nonprofit, and she's like, I didn't know what to do. I had no idea. And then she contacted Norma, and then they got her up and going. So that was also an awesome success story too.
Right. And we collaborate with her now too. It's again, and I always tell our clients whenever I speak or I'm doing something in the community, I always say, wherever we go, you go. And that's so true, because as a Women's Business Center, if we are doing something in the community or in the Central Valley, we share these stories with individuals. I know our success stories go to the state level, they go to the federal level. I think even our first success story, I want to say it was Larissa's, went to DC, and it was actually, distributed to Congress to just share again the stories of what the Women's Business Centers do in California in particular. This was for California. There's 16 Women's Business Centers in the state of California, from San Diego to Redding.
Oh, okay. And that's great with nonprofits because they're not easy to get off the ground. There's a lot that goes into them, especially with the importance of maintaining your tax status, 501c3.
Your bylaws, making sure you're following.
And
meetings,
just obtaining the board, making sure you have the board that's going to support you and be behind you and really market, the nonprofit.
Yeah. Board is really critical.
And grant writing.
Yeah. Oh, sounds like you're pretty good at that. So
well, so far I could say that was the least experience I had, but now I'm better at it.
Do you work at all with trying to reach out to women, minority, low income? I get vets wouldn't be applicable for this question, but high school students or maybe college students to kind of get them before they're out in kind of the business world to let them know that, hey, like you running your own business or you being an entrepreneur is an option and you have this resource to, because I know a lot of young people probably just don't know that they can do that, or it's just, if you're not inherently an entrepreneur by birth, like some people I know are, they just don't know that those options are there. So do you have any outreach to younger kids to let them know that?
You partner with Angel, because Angel, she
then
has
that's exactly what Angel does, but
high school students.
Exactly. And I think it's really key because I have the opportunity to speak to different schools, and I do speaking events. I've spoken for the Girl Scouts. I also went to the Wonderful Academy to share resources, but also get to talk to them about what it is that they want to do. And you're right, understand, listening to them, first of all, in their ideas of what they want to do. Because nowadays, with YouTube and Instagram and all these different TikToks, all these different things that they're doing, it could they could be successful fairly quickly. Again, it just takes that one idea, right? Yeah. And what they want to do. But definitely we reach out to the community in the high school, the grade school. Even my own son at 12 started a photography business, and he does photography. He goes to car shows. Well, I drive him. I'm the chauffeur. But he takes, pictures of cars, and he's developed his skill where now he's invited to Las Vegas and Los Angeles to these different car shows to take pictures. And again, he started that when he was 12. So it's just, I think, developing that, that, and not the resources and providing the information to them to help them with that.
Well, the C-Tech ROC program that I was mentioning a little bit with Angel, they just had where students were presenting a business plan.
Oh, yeah, the pitch.
And then professionals like myself and other people and nonprofit board members were going and voting on business plans and critiquing them and telling them, like, yeah, this is a valid idea, you should go do it. And so programs like that, which are all stemmed through high school students, like you're reaching out to the next generation. Also giving back with, I know Bitwise is trying to do a lot of different certification courses to help people get certified. If you wanted to go to computer science courses instead of just having to go to college, you can go through their program, get certified, and it's equivalent to a college degree, and you can get immediately a job paying, much more money than having to wait the 4 years. So I think using those type of companies, also like the BHS Avid program or all the high school Avid programs, I go speak to them and speaking with them and telling them like, hey, these are your options. Like you can be a business owner. So I do think like there is a lot that we all do to reach the high school students. Yeah, but I think it's there. And if they want it, especially with, like she said, TikTok, you can easily blow up and have a huge business overnight on TikTok. So.
Or even, again, learning how to do drop shipping, e-commerce. That's one of the things. And you shared about how we reach the community. So again, after our grand opening, we were on television. So we were on the news and so forth. The next day, we started having more walk-ins coming into the Women's Business Center. And one person that came in with her mother, she was a student at Bakersfield College, a business major, and she had an idea. And so they saw the news, and they came in the next day. They became a client. So now we're going to be working with her to help her launch her business. So again,
that's awesome.
Isn't it? It's just exciting, to know that we're able to, help them where they're at. And again, it's not a one size fits all. Again, they can take the courses, the webinars, the classes. But again, we have to treat them as an individual because their idea may be different than somebody else's idea, and they may go about it a little bit differently. So we really kind of cater to where they're at and help them with what they need to do and that next step.
And will you even start kind of like the basics? And if like, I need help drafting a business plan.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You start there and
definitely. And actually with the course that we're offering, especially with this one with the Dream Fund, you have to do a business plan and you have to put in projections and your financial piece of it, because that's a criteria for the Dream Fund. So again, going through it step by step to have a business plan, I always tell people, you need a roadmap of where you want to take your business. And that's what the business plan does.
Have you worked with anybody that came to you with, say, an idea that they had for a business and you took them from like literally just like, I have an idea, but I don't know what to do. And then business plan to, all the way from A to B, and then now has a successful business. I know you talked a little bit about the first, Letitia was her name? Or Larissa, sorry. Was that her story or was she already further along?
No, that was her story.
Okay,
yes,
so she
definitely.
literally had
literally had to start from the square one. What do I do now? Where do I go from here? How do I do a business plan? What is a marketing? Again, she had to do her own because she was a one-person show, right? So she even mentioned that at the grand opening, she had to learn how to use Canva because she couldn't afford somebody to do her marketing. So she had to learn how to use these different programs to create her marketing for her business.
Now with that, my follow-up question, because I don't think that was discussed during your story. So like with tax preparation, you actually have to you have to get bonded, licensed, and insured and all these things. Now, did she have that before she came to you? Or was that like, oh, you want to start a tax preparation, this is what you need to do, and then you helped her get those things? Or was she already had those things and then you just helped her get the business off the ground?
Right. And she had those things because that's what she was doing with her partner initially.
Okay.
So I guess just to clarify a little bit, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my question would be further aside from her, how did anyone started maybe with literally nothing? So it sounds like she had some licensure and she had some background ready to go, but has anyone come to you and be like, I've got this idea, that's all I have, and then...
Definitely. And we've had some clients who have come in with nothing, again, just the idea. And for example, we have this gentleman, Jesus, he came in with his business idea and we helped him with that. And he does a lot of demographic information, Census Bureau data mining, all that kind of stuff. And he's like, Norma, I want to do this for my business. I said, oh yeah, great. That was fantastic. Cause again, he's an expert in that field. Right. And so he came to the class, he did the class and he worked with Angel also. And what he did is he had to set up his business, identify what his target market was, get his business plan together. He's now a corporation. So he ended up being a corporation. And now he's working on doing that for nonprofits, as far as the demographic information, but also with other Fortune 500 companies nationwide to help them kind of target what their target market is, whether it could be the Latino population and the marketing piece of it. And that's now what he's doing.
And so he's up and running with a successful business.
He's up and running with his business.
That's great. And when was this? Was that when he was starting?
He would have been in 2019.
Okay.
And now,
so 3 years.
Yeah. So now I have, he's a success story also. I just submitted his success story. Again, just talking about where they start. Again, just that idea and what are the steps that they need to take to get to that. Do I want to be a sole proprietor? Do I want to be an LLC? What are the benefits of being an LLC versus a corporation or an S corporation? Those types of things. Those are we can provide them with the resources and the information, but ultimately it's a business owner's decision to decide what type of business they're going to have. And then from there, then we move forward with all the other things they need to do.
That sounds right. You should figure that out. Yeah. But also I do feel like sometimes it's hard in that first year to figure out like what type of entity you want, because you don't know what your sales really are going to be. And unless you're in an industry that needs to be protected, like you can get sued,
liability,
you really don't need an LLC or in a corporation, because in the state of California, you're paying $800 no matter what. I mean, if we were in Nevada or New York where it's $40 a year, then yeah, let's roll the dice and make
$40.
Yeah, let's roll the dice and make an LLC. But sometimes it is hard in that first year unless you have high liability to make those decisions. And I mean, I kind of do like a rule of thumb, like if you're netting 40 to 50,000 and you can afford, because an LLC is taxed either as an S corp or a sole proprietor, and you're only getting the LLC for the protection. So if you don't need the protection, get liability insurance and you're okay. But if you're wanting to take the tax advantages, which would be as an S corp, so either an LLC as an S corp or a corporation as an S corp, you need to put yourself on payroll. You need to be doing other things, which costs money.
Right.
So if you're not bringing in that, I'd always tell them, like, don't do that until we know what your sales are and different things, because then you're gonna be paying $800 or paying me to dissolve it, which is more money.
Right. I tell the same thing to my clients. It's like, you have to pay $100 for the pleasure of doing business
Just
in
to
California.
do business in California. And
then pay a CPA to file a return, typically, right?
Yeah, and get all that together. And that's where, again, it has to come, from them and what they want to do. But you mentioned something that was really key, and this is the one thing we talked to our business owners as well, the liability, and then, if they're an LLC, having that business account, banking account, and separate personal from business. That's the number one thing, right? Because a lot of people that didn't do that, again, when the PPP and the EIDL and everything that came out, they couldn't tell a difference between what was business and what was personal. They're commingling funds, and there's nothing to determine what was business and what was not. So from the get-go, we always let people know that you should be separating those from the beginning.
And your operating agreement and your bylaws, it says that you have to have a separate bank account. So you're already piercing the corporate veil, if you will, by not having it. But
that's actually the one thing I tell clients when I set up their entity. If you're not going to remember anything, it is set up a separate account. You do not commingle your assets.
Right. And now with Venmo and everything else, it's getting so complicated because, I work with a lot of sole proprietors, and before, I think it's frowned upon. It's not illegal to commingle. I still think it's kind of frowned upon because you shouldn't be commingling when you have a business. But now with Venmo, they're going to be issuing a 1099-K if you made over $600 in a year. And if you're commingling your Venmo and you're taking money from friends for meals or concert tickets or whatever have you, Venmo's not going to know that money wasn't your business, and they're going to issue that 1099-K, and you're going to have to pay taxes on it unless you hire a CPA or a tax professional to fight against the IRS for you saying it isn't sales. And so I think more than ever, if anybody starting in 2022, if you were commingling, just stop.
Yes, don't commingle.
No more.
No commingling.
Get a separate business account or even a separate checking account that you operate your business out of.
My 2 cents is probably not the best 2 cents, but no pun intended, is don't use Venmo.
Yeah. Oh, well, I tell my clients that all the time. But if you have to, because I understand,
it's a convenience. It's so hard to argue.
With these pop-up,
I know.
where they're selling things and they're at pop-up events and stuff, and all your consumers, all they have is Venmo.
Or Apple Pay or whatever.
Yeah, it's so hard. But
I don't even carry cash.
Most people don't anymore.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So it's hard to not have those. I try to get a lot of people to use Zelle because accounting wise, that's a much better program for us accountants because it shows up on the statement who sent you the money, who you sent the money to. It doesn't, lump them in together. So
Zelle comes from a direct account, so it could be your business account. So it's easy to.
Venmo doesn't. Venmo's like, oh, here's deposit a lump sum, or we're going to take out a lump sum for things that you paid, and then now with the 1099-K, because it's going to be for Apple Pay, Cash App, Venmo, PayPal now, and Stripe and Square were already doing it, but they were doing it if you did over 20,000 in the year or over 200 transactions, and now everybody across the border has to do it at $600 in sales for the year. So that's pretty much everybody on every single app.
So they're treating it now like it used to be for, you should 1099 your housekeeper if they make over $600 a year, or your gardener, or anybody that you pay for services, I guess. Fun
Interesting.
Yeah. So even more, you need to be telling them to do that.
Right.
Well, I'm gonna go on the record now, Amanda. You can do a workshop for us.
Yes.
Oh, you just.
I would love to.
Just talked yourself into that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good job. Speaking of workshops, any events coming up? Any news they'd like to share? Anything that's coming up in the next 30, 60 days?
Definitely. Again, I think I mentioned the Soñando y Empezando class that's starting on May 25th. That's our Soñando y Empezando. That's our Spanish course, which is a 12-week dreaming and starting your business.
Oh, okay.
So, that's with the Dream Fund. So if you take that 12-week course, we are providing it completely in Spanish, and we have clients that are going to be hybrid, so they could take it there with us at the University of Laverne, where we utilize the campus, or in also the hybrid through Zoom. So we're going to have it hybrid. And then we have the Explore, Design, and Launch, which is its English equivalent, starting on June 15th. And again, those two programs are participating for the Dream Fund, so that once they finish the course and they meet all the criteria, which again, one of them is starting a business or opening a business account, and also moving forward with the business plan and so forth, then they can apply for a grant for the seed funding, which is $5,000 up to $10,000 for the money to start their business.
Yeah, I mean that's depending on what type of business you have. But I mean, that goes a long way in at least, getting your CPA paid for, maybe your attorney to set up your entity, or, get your initial
your home
liability
office
insurance,
together, your printer, a computer,
get a laptop,
those types
stuff
of
like
things.
that.
Yes.
Yeah, it's good seed money. Yeah. And to sign up for that, they just go to your webpage, or
they can go to our webpage, mcscorp.org/Kern, and there's a button there. It's an orange button that says request a consultation. That takes them to the registration page for them to become a client. And then once they're a client, then we notify them that, we've got them in the system, and then we can, they can either request a consultation just for a business consultation. It's free of charge for our consultants to meet with them. But if they're interested in the class, they would put in there that they're interested in the class so that we can get them registered.
Okay. Is there a capacity limit, or?
We do have a capacity limit of a 25.
Oh, okay. So if you're interested, get in and sign up.
You have to get in pretty quickly.
Okay. Before we get into the rapid fire questions, any questions that you feel like I missed, or that we want to ask while we have this wonderful lady here in our studio?
I think we've talked a lot.
Very good.
And I'm always excited to talk about the Women's Business Center.
Well, that's obviously you could tell it's your passion. And,
I love it.
And anybody with a passion for anything it's contagious. And so our community is lucky to have you.
Thank you.
Okay. Before we get into rapid fire questions, again, I want to remind our listeners to follow us on Instagram. Check out our webpage, our newsletter. If you have any guest ideas for us for business and community leaders here in Bakersfield or Kern County that you'd like to hear, send us that, and we'll try to get them scheduled. All right. Who is your biggest mentor?
I was thinking about that question, and I am a person who I have several mentors. I don't have one favorite mentor. I love reading books. I feel that, when you read a book, or whether it's a person, a book, or something that you learned from, that could be a mentor. For me, it was, again, I love to read. I'm a business nerd. So anything that's business, financial, I think, Amanda, you'd appreciate this. I was a Susie Orman and Dave Ramsey nerd also. So, just learning from different individuals. So I would say I don't have one specific one, but I have a group. I'm a people collector, if you will. Okay. And I consider, them mentors and learning from them.
Okay, and that kind of segues in the second question that we have under rapid fire here is, what book do we have to read and why? Well,
one of the books that I just read, and I had quite a few, but this one really resonated with me. It was Everything is Figureoutable by Marie Forleo. And she talks about how, as women, we always think we have to have all our ducks in a row and everything before we can do anything.
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah, the imposter syndrome, or we have to be, it has to be perfect before we can launch or do anything. And she just says, hey, go for it. You'll figure it out. Just take one step at a time, and you'll figure that out as you go. And like anything, nothing ever stays the same, right? Yeah. So things change. And even we learned that during COVID. So I really enjoyed her book.
Okay. You want to take the last one, Amanda?
Oh, yeah. If you could turn back the time and talk to your 18-year-old self, what would you tell him or her? Oh.
I guess you got to say him or her now. And we're in 2022. So.
I think for me, I would have encouraged myself to stay in school or keep going to school, because I did that later in life, and I'll just share the story because I don't mind sharing the story. I'm very transparent about it. When I turned 18 on August 19th, and I was married on August 22nd. So, I had just turned 18 and was married. But again, that was something that was a cultural thing with the Latino population, or with my family, really. And so that was the only thing I knew. So the education side of it happened later. And that's when, unfortunately, life happens, and, divorce happens, and I had to learn quickly. So I really threw myself into education and learning and reading books and listening to different, as I mentioned, I collect people, so mentors, and working with people and surrounding myself with people who were positive and who loved learning. So I would have definitely done something different, told myself to keep learning and keep going to school and really, learn as much as I could, it made a difference. Although I don't regret, sure. I said, I have my son and everything, but it's just one of the things that I think it would have been different.
That's good advice. And that's something it comes up a lot when we're talking to people on this podcast. And it depends on where your life experiences are, because we've oftentimes talked to people and cautioned people who are listening, especially younger listeners, that yes, education is important, but is it necessary to go to a 4-year university and Florida right away and rack up $250,000 in debt without knowing what you want to do. Right.
No.
So it's one of those things it just needs to be mindful. And whether that for you means staying in your local community and maybe getting your AA and working while doing it so you have no debt, and then maybe figure out for yourself what your career path is before you go and make this huge financial commitment. But that's something that it seems to always pop up when we ask that question, or when we talk to different people in the community. It's like, yeah, I wish I would have done this, or I've heard the opposite. It's like, yeah, I end up not doing anything with my degree, and I spent $150,000.
Definitely. I've heard that story too. Yeah. Someone goes to school and they've obtained their Juris Doctorate, and then they're not even using it. Yeah. Or they have some sort of other doctoral degree and they're not using that. But I definitely think that you do have to follow your passion and what works. Just to share a quick story with my son, he graduated from high school. He went to Stockdale, and he thought, well, I don't want to really go to school right now. I want to go experience life. So he's had several jobs, and he's very smart. Finally, he was working for the city, and the gentleman, they were telling him, what are you doing here? He was creating things for them, for sprayers and everything. And so he loved to tinker. And so now he started BC, and he's getting into mechanical engineering.
I was going to say engineer.
So he's learning to become a mechanical engineer. So then he'll be going away to school. But I mean, he's 23, but I didn't want to tell him, hey, you have to do this. I said, you need to find your own way, and find out what's going to work for you, because what works for you may not work for somebody else. But he learned, and that's where he was determined to now finish school, and this is what he wants to do.
Perfect
I think
example.
That was one of the biggest downfalls of my generation growing up. Was it was kind of forced upon us that, like, you have to graduate immediately, go to college, and
yes.
like pick out a degree and do that. And instead of experiencing what you wanted to do, or even talking about trade schools, like now they're talking about there's a deficit in trades,
right.
electricians and all these things,
vocational
because
school.
Everyone was pushing a degree. You had to graduate from high school, immediately go into college, and you don't even know who you I feel like you really grow in your early 20s as an individual. And how do you know what you want to do for the rest of your life when you're still growing into the person you're going to be? And if you're immediately pushed into a school where now you have to pay anywhere from $40,000 to $150,000 for that degree, and now you're like, oh, I didn't even do anything with the degree. Like,
right. I want to go to vocational school and become an electrician, because that's my passion or my skill set.
And that's
giving them the space and the freedom to do that, I think, is so important.
And that's what he did. He's like, Mom, I want to learn a trade. So he learned how to, he went to welding school. And then he said, well, I'm going to go work in the oil fields because they make a lot of money. Well, he learned how hard that was.
Yeah, up and down, right?
He learned how hard that
Sometimes
was, but also the weather, right? And the heat.
Yeah.
You're out there and you have, so he learned that. But now, as a mechanical engineer, and he has this welding background, he's like, Mom, people are asking me to do these types of work for him or work and, these gates and so forth. So now he has a side hustle, right? So now he's can have another a business besides going to school and something to fall back on. I always tell you always have to plan B.
Yes.
What's your fallback plan here? So
it doesn't have to be a fallback plan. It could be a side hustle forever.
And that's what
right?
he's doing. Exactly. He's learned the skill and he's learned how to do that. So definitely, I always tell when I speak to the high schoolers, I says, that's great. You have a career or an education, but learn something else, because you never know where you're going to be and what's going to happen and how you can use that skill.
That's great advice.
It is.
That's a good 2 cents right there.
I think that
good 2 cents.
I don't use my degree for what I do at all. I feel like college really just prepared me to know how to learn and know how to critically think and like be always like searching for an answer and searching for like the next thing. And so I agree with those people who are like, I went to school, I wasted money on a degree and I don't even use it at all, and I do something completely else that I'm passionate about. But I think going to school, at least it helped me evolve to who I am, because I was involved in a lot of things on campus, and I learned so many different things from all the different professors. And then, like I said, it gave me the ability to learn things. And that's the biggest thing I think in life, is you have to constantly always be learning. And if you don't want to be learning, that's how you're going to get left behind.
Yes, always learning. And that's why I consider myself a lifelong learner. I don't ever think that I know everything, and I love to just learn new things.
Well, I don't want to pick on your son too much, but he mentioned something earlier, but now we're talking personal stuff. Is he into classic cars or?
Oh, my 12, he's now 15 and a half. No, he's into
the
supercars.
Okay.
This is another son. Yeah, he's my younger one. one. He's into not the classic cars, but the supercars. So, Lamborghinis, McLaren.
Well,
I'll take him
nice.
to San Clemente. He does a photo shoot over there. But he's into those cars.
Okay. Because little something about Amanda I learned, which is really cool, is I drive a 71 Chevelle that my dad and I purchased and restored over the years, and Amanda saw it and she's like, whose car is that? And I was like, well, that's mine. And now I learned something about her, that her uncle, is it uncle?
My uncle.
He restores classic cars about 3 or 4 a year, and some of the ones that she's mentioned it sounds like he does amazing work. So I was intrigued. I was curious if your son was interested in those type of cars or not.
And I've taken him to those shows as well, but normally it's the supercars.
Okay, well, we'll give him a pass on that.
He's got to see, sit in some of them and everything.
He'll learn how rare the other ones are too, and he'll like it eventually.
Well, thank you so much for giving us an hour here in your afternoon and providing some great content for our community.
Nope. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, my
Excited
pleasure.
to be here.
Yes, thanks, Amanda, too.
Of course.
This show has been brought to you by the Law Office of Kyle Jones, Troy Burton with the Lynn Company, CPA John Duffield, Scott Hansen Real Estate Lender, broker and investor, and Dave Plivlich, President and CEO of the Marcom Group and MarcomBranding.com. You've been listening to the Our 2 Cents podcast. Check out the show notes for links and more information about the show. Also visit our website at our2centspodcast.com or catch us on Instagram at Our 2 Cents Podcasts. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and share with others.